Hello, dear friend. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight. So, as you settle into this moment, into this quiet space you've created for yourself, know that you've already taken the most important step. You've chosen to pause, to rest, to let go. For the next hour, there's nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to fix or figure out. This time is yours. Let your body sink a little deeper into whatever is supporting you. Feel the weight of your head on the pillow, the softness beneath you. Take one slow breath in and let it go. Tonight, I'm going to share stories with you. Ancient tales from the Zen tradition, each one a gentle teacher, each one an invitation to release what you've been carrying. These aren't just stories to think about. They're stories to feel, stories that speak to something deeper than your thinking mind. As you listen, you might notice your thoughts wandering. That's perfectly natural. Simply notice and gently return to the sound of these words, to the rhythm of your breath. You don't need to try to stay awake. You don't need to hear every word. In fact, drifting off is exactly what these stories are here for. Let's begin. There was once a young monk who lived in a mountain monastery. Every morning before dawn, he would walk down a winding path to fetch water from a stream at the bottom of the valley. The path was steep and treacherous. Loose stones shifted beneath his feet. Roots reached up to trip him. Mist hung thick in the air, making it hard to see where he was going. And every morning, he resented this task. Why did he have to be the one to fetch water? Why couldn't someone else do it? The path was too dangerous. The buckets were too heavy. The walk took too long. He had more important things to do, meditation to practice, texts to study, enlightenment to achieve. His mind filled with complaints as he descended the mountain. With each step, his irritation grew. By the time he reached the stream, he was so lost in his thoughts of unfairness that he barely noticed the sound of water over stones. He filled his buckets quickly, roughly, splashing water everywhere. Then began the long climb back up, the weight of the water making his shoulders ache, his resentment making his heart heavy. This went on for months. One morning, the abbot of the monastery, an old teacher with kind eyes and a quiet presence, asked if he could accompany the young monk on his water-fetching journey. The young monk agreed, though he was confused. The abbot rarely left the monastery grounds. Why would he want to make this difficult trek? They walked together in silence. The young monk navigated the path automatically, his mind churning with its usual complaints, though he tried to hide them out of respect for his teacher. When they reached the stream, instead of filling the buckets immediately, the abbot sat down on a smooth rock by the water's edge. He gestured for the young monk to sit beside him. "Tell me," the abbot said softly, "what do you hear?" The young monk listened. "The stream," he said, "water flowing." "And what else?" The monk listened more carefully. "Birds, the wind in the trees, leaves rustling. And what else?" The monk closed his eyes. In the silence, he began to notice things he'd never heard before. The different tones of water as it moved over rocks, the splash of a small waterfall upstream, the chirping of insects, the whisper of his own breath. "Now," said the abbot, "what do you see?" The monk opened his eyes. At first, he saw only what he always saw: water, rocks, trees, the same stream he'd been visiting every morning for months. But as he looked more carefully, as his gaze softened, he began to notice details. The way light filtered through the canopy above, the tiny fish darting in the shallows, the moss on the stones, the way water drops caught the light like small diamonds. "This stream," the abbot said, "has been teaching you every morning, but you were too busy complaining to notice the lesson." The young monk felt something shift inside his chest, a loosening, a softening. Every step down the mountain, the abbot continued, is a chance to practice presence. Every stone that shifts beneath your feet is a teacher in impermanence. Every bucket of water you carry back up is an opportunity to build strength, patience, humility. He paused, watching the water flow. You think this task is keeping you from your practice, but this task is your practice. The path is the temple. The buckets are your teachers. The water you carry sustains everyone in the monastery. This is not separate from enlightenment. This is enlightenment itself. The young monk sat in silence, tears in his eyes. He had walked this path hundreds of times, but he had never truly been here. He had been so focused on where he should be, what he should be doing, how things should be different, that he had completely missed where he actually was. From that morning on, his water fetching changed completely. He still walked the same path, still carried the same heavy buckets, still climbed the same steep mountain, but now he noticed everything. The way morning light turned the mist golden, the pattern of his own footsteps, the feeling of muscles working as he climbed, the satisfaction of setting down full buckets at the monastery door, knowing this water would make tea for his brothers, wash their hands, nourish the garden. The task hadn't changed, but he had changed, and in that change, the burden became a blessing. What he thought was in his way became the way. Let your breath deepen for a moment. Notice how your body feels right now. Is there any tension you're holding? Any tightness in your shoulders or jaw? See if you can let it soften just a little. You don't need to force anything. Just notice and allow. Let's continue. In a village at the edge of a great forest, there lived a tea master named Kenji. He was renowned throughout the region for the perfection of his tea ceremonies, the precise angle of his bow, the exact temperature of his water, the graceful arc of his movements as he whisked matcha into foam. People traveled from distant cities to attend his ceremonies. To sit in his tea room was considered a great honor. Kenji took great pride in this reputation. Each morning he woke early to practice to ensure every gesture was flawless. But despite all this perfection, despite all this recognition, Kenji felt empty inside. Something was missing, though he couldn't name it. One day, a letter arrived from a famous Zen master named Sorin. It said simply, "I would like to attend your tea ceremony. I will arrive 3 days from now at sunset." For 3 days, Kenji prepared with obsessive attention. He cleaned his tea room until it gleamed. He practiced his movements until they were beyond perfect. He selected his finest bowl, his most precious tea caddy, his best quality matcha. This would be the ceremony of his lifetime. When Master Sorin arrived, he was older than Kenji expected, with a weathered face and simple robes. He carried nothing but a walkie. Take another gentle breath with me, in and out. Feel how your body is relaxing more deeply with each story, with each breath, with each moment of letting go. You're safe, you're held, you can rest. In a small temple at the edge of a village, there lived a nun named Aya who tended the most beautiful garden anyone had ever seen. Cherry trees bloomed in spring, lotus flowers opened in summer, maple leaves turned brilliant red in autumn. Even in winter, the snow-covered garden held a quiet beauty that took your breath away. Visitors came from everywhere to walk through Aya's garden, to sit on the stone benches, to feel the peace that seemed to radiate from every carefully tended plant. They all asked her the same question: "What is your secret? How do you create such beauty?" And Aya always gave the same answer: "I do very little. I simply pay attention." People nodded, thinking they understood. But they didn't. Not really. One spring, a young woman named Hana came to the temple. She had recently lost her husband in an accident, and grief had hollowed her out completely. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't find any reason to continue living. A friend suggested she visit Aya's garden, hoping the beauty might bring comfort. Hana agreed, though she felt nothing would help. When she arrived, Aya was kneeling beside a flower bed, pulling weeds. She looked up as Hana approached, saw the pain in her eyes, and gestured to the spot beside her. "Would you like to help?" Aya asked gently. Hana knelt down, not because she wanted to, but because she didn't have the energy to refuse. Aya handed her a small tool and showed her how to identify weeds among the flowers. They worked in silence for a while. Slowly, Hana began to pay attention. The feel of cool soil under her fingers, the roots releasing from the earth, the textures of leaves, some rough, some smooth, some soft as breath. After an hour, Aya sat back. "People think gardening is about making things grow," she said. "But really it's about accepting that everything grows, everything changes, and everything dies. My job is not to control that. My job is to work with it." She pointed to a rose bush. "Last year it had magnificent blooms. This year it's struggling. I could fight that. But instead, I accept that this year it needs something different. Maybe rest, maybe less attention. Maybe it's giving its energy back to the soil so something else can grow." Hana listened, really listened, for the first time in months. "When my students ask how to create beauty," Aya said, "they expect techniques, how to prune, when to water, but the real secret is simpler. I don't fight with the garden. I don't argue with the weather. When a plant dies, I thank it for what it gave and return it to the soil. When the rain doesn't come, I carry water. When it comes too much, I improve drainage. I work with what is, not with what I wish would be." Hana felt something crack open. Tears came. "I keep fighting with reality," she whispered, "arguing that life should be different." Aya took her hand. "Of course you do. Loss is the hardest thing to accept because acceptance feels like betrayal. But acceptance isn't approval. It's simply acknowledging what is true. When a beloved tree dies, I grieve, but I still plant new seeds. Because the garden teaches me every day, everything changes, and that's not a tragedy. That's what makes beauty possible." Hana stayed for many weeks, learning to work without resistance. She stopped fighting the truth. She began to notice beauty again. And one morning, as she watered new seedlings, she realized something remarkable. She was humming. Aya smiled. "Yes, this is how it works. This is how we learn to live with loss, not by fighting it, but by continuing to care for our garden anyway. Your breath is slower now, deeper, easier. Let your whole body relax even more. Let yourself drift if you need to. These stories will continue whether you hear them or not." High in the mountains, where two peaks met across a deep gorge, there was a rope bridge. It was old and narrow and swayed in the wind, but it was the only way across. On one side lived a man named Taro. His job was to maintain the bridge. Simple work, faithful work, but Taro was terrified of heights. Every morning he crossed anyway. People asked, "How can you do this job when you're so afraid?" Taro said, "Who said I'm not afraid? I'm terrified. But I do it anyway." One day a monk came to watch him. Afterward he asked, "Why not quit? Why torture yourself this way?" Taro looked at the bridge swaying in the wind. "Because if I don't maintain it, people can't cross safely. And just because I'm afraid doesn't mean the work isn't important." He smiled. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done even though you're afraid." The monk nodded. "You've shown me something I forgot," he said. "These feelings we call obstacles, fear, anger, desire, they're not the enemy, they're companions on the journey." Taro looked toward the bridge again. "The fear doesn't stop the work. It keeps me careful and it keeps me awake. It reminds me that the bridge matters." He took a breath and smiled at the wind. The fear is just weather. And weather doesn't stop the work that needs doing. Now, let yourself sink deeper now. Your body is heavy and warm. Your mind is quiet. There's nowhere to go, nothing to do. Just rest, just listen, just let go. In a small village, there was a potter named May. Her bowls were flawless, her vases perfect, her teacups smooth as moonlight. But May was exhausted and lonely and quietly unhappy. One day, a traveler named Kenji visited her studio. He admired her perfection and then handed her a teacup he had made years before. It wasn't perfect. The glaze was uneven, the shape a little off, but it felt alive. Kenji said, "I stopped trying to control everything. I let the clay speak. I accepted imperfection." Perfection is beautiful, he told her, but it can also be a prison. That night, May walked by the river and saw the moon break and reform on the rippling surface. Nothing in nature was perfectly still, and yet it was all beautiful. The next morning, she sat at her wheel without a plan. She let the clay move as it wished. The first piece collapsed, and she laughed. Weeks passed, her work changed. It became expressive, human, joyful. Customers noticed, but more importantly, she did. One day, she picked up Kenji's imperfect cup and saw it differently. That gap in the glaze, once a flaw, was now a place where the cup breathed, a reminder that not everything needs to be sealed perfect. Some things are more beautiful for being a little broken open. And now, dear friend, our hour together is ending. But these stories aren't really ending. They'll stay with you as you sleep, planting seeds that will grow in their own time. Let's take 3 more breaths together, deep and slow. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. Remember what these stories have shown you, that the burden you carry can become a blessing when you're present for it. That perfection without heart is empty, but heart without perfection is everything. That acceptance isn't giving up, it's the way forward. That courage isn't the absence of fear, but action in the presence of it. Right now, you are enough. You don't need to change to be worthy of peace. You don't need to fix yourself to deserve rest. As you drift off to sleep, know that you're safe. Everything you need is already within you. Let your body rest deeply. Let your mind quiet completely. Let your heart soften. May you sleep peacefully. May you wake refreshed. May you carry these lessons gently into tomorrow. Good night, dear friend. Rest well. If you're still awake, still listening, that's perfectly fine. There's no rush. Let me share one more story with you, a final gift for this night. On a rocky island, far from the mainland, stood a lighthouse. Inside lived a keeper named Hiroshi, whose job was to keep the light burning every night. Through storms and solitude, he tended the flame faithfully for 20 years. One terrible night, he saw a ship caught in the storm. His beam showed the captain the rocks, and because of that light, the ship found safety. Hiroshi never met the people he saved, but he knew his light mattered, not for glory, not for thanks, but because somewhere in the darkness, someone might need it. Years later, when he retired, he told the new keeper, "Every light matters. Even when you can't see who it reaches, you never know when your steady presence might guide someone to safety." The lamp began its sweep across the dark sea. This light doesn't judge who's worthy, it just shines. And so do you. Let that image rest in your mind. A lighthouse, steady against the storm. Its light sweeping across dark waters, a promise that even unseen acts of care still matter. You are that lighthouse, dear friend, even on days when you feel small or unseen. Your light still guides. Rest now. Let your body soften. Let your mind grow quiet as the deep sea. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You are part of an infinite web of connection, of light meeting darkness, of hearts remembering home. Breathe in, light. Breathe out, darkness. Breathe in, peace. Breathe out, everything else. Let go now, completely. Trust that you're safe. Trust that you're held. The light is tended. The work is done. The night is here, and you are exactly where you need to be. Sleep well, dear lighthouse keeper. Sleep well, beautiful soul. Your light will shine again tomorrow, but tonight, you rest.